Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of your sources, extract the most important nuggets of knowledge or insight, and give you a real shortcut to being truly well informed. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a setting that, well, at first glance, seems utterly idyllic. A seemingly perfect suburban neighborhood. But as we're about to uncover, behind those impeccably manicured lawns and cheerful picket fences, profound secrets are waiting to be revealed, and human complexities are bubbling just beneath the surface. Our journey into this hidden world is guided by excerpts from S101.txt, which immediately pulls us into a startling narrative, the inexplicable suicide of a character named Mary Alice Young. Our mission today is to unpack the intricate layers of these seemingly perfect lives. We'll extract surprising insights, explore the universal themes of appearance versus reality, and specifically for you, our listener, we're going to delve into the rich English vocabulary, the truly useful phrases, and the deep cultural nuances woven throughout this captivating story. You'll really see how language isn't just a tool for communication here. It's a powerful brush, painting vivid pictures of character and circumstance, and often hinting at truths far deeper than what's immediately apparent.
That's precisely it. What's truly fascinating about this material is how the seemingly mundane becomes deeply significant. This isn't merely a story about neighbors living their daily lives. It's a profound window into human nature and the quiet, often unacknowledged complexities of everyday existence. And as you said, it offers a fantastic opportunity to deepen our understanding of practical English. We'll be observing how specific words and phrases, even common ones, aren't just descriptive. They are highly impactful, telling us a great deal about the underlying cultural landscape and the subtle messages we convey, often without realizing it.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately, because the story throws us right into the heart of the mystery, starting with Mary Alice Young's astonishing act. The narrative opens with Mary Alice herself introducing her life leading up to her suicide last Thursday. She describes her routine as something she maintained with an almost obsessive dedication, telling us she spent her days quietly polishing the routine of my life until it gleamed with perfection. That phrase alone is so incredibly striking. What does it immediately bring to your mind about the immense effort she was putting in and what might be hidden beneath that perfect, shining exterior?
It's an incredibly potent image, isn't it? Quietly polishing the routine of my life until it gleamed with perfection. The word polishing isn't passive. It implies a deliberate, continuous effort, much like shining, a valuable piece of silver or furniture. It's an active maintenance. It suggests that her life wasn't just naturally perfect, but that she was working to make it, or at least appear perfect.
Right, active work.
And when something gleams with perfection, it shines, it reflects light, it looks immaculate on the surface. But this phrase also hints at a profound internal labor, and perhaps a hidden struggle to uphold an impossible standard. In many suburban cultures, there's an unspoken pressure to present this unblemished facade, where everything from your lawn to your family life must appear flawless. Mary Alice's words immediately make you wonder about the emotional cost of such relentless upkeep.
Absolutely. The emotional cost must have been immense. And that's why, in her own words, it was so astonishing when she decided to go to her hallway closet and retrieve a revolver. She says that normally there's never anything newsworthy about her life. Now, newsworthy, that refers to something important or interesting enough to be reported in the news, right?
Exactly.
What's the stark contrast here, and what does it tell us about how Mary Alice herself viewed her existence before this shocking act?
Well, the contrast couldn't be more stark. Mary Alice describes her life as so ordinary, so unremarkable, that it would never merit a headline. Yet her final act is, by definition, profoundly newsworthy. This juxtaposition highlights the chasm between her outward, meticulously controlled existence and the desperate internal reality that led her to such a shocking decision. For many, the idea of a quiet, unassuming person taking such a drastic step is truly astonishing because it defies the conventional expectations of a predictable, perfectly ordinary life. It immediately forces us as listeners to question what kind of inner turmoil could lead someone who dedicates so much effort to polishing their life to a complete and utter breaking point, shattering that polished surface so dramatically.
Yeah.
Is a powerful challenge to that illusion of suburban perfection.
And that illusion is immediately put to the test. Mary Alice's body was discovered by her neighbor, Mrs. Martha Huber, after a strange popping sound. The source describes Mrs. Huber's reaction as having her curiosity aroused. This is a wonderful, slightly more formal phrase than just being curious.
It is. It sounds a bit old-fashioned maybe, but very descriptive.
It suggests a strong, almost irresistible urge to find out what's going on, an internal stirring of intense inquisitiveness. And what does Mrs. Huber do with that aroused curiosity? She then concocts a pretext to drop in unannounced, returning a blender she'd supposedly borrowed 6 months prior. It's a classic move, isn't it?
It is, and it's deeply revealing of human nature in a community setting. Mrs. Huber is initially described as grief-stricken by the senseless tragedy. Now, grief-stricken means deeply affected by grief, overwhelmed with sadness. Pretty straightforward.
Right.
But the narrative quickly adds, but only for a moment. This immediate contrast is crucial to understanding her character. While she might offer an initial outward display of sorrow, her true nature, her ability to look on the bright side, kicks in almost immediately.
To look on the bright side. That's a phrase you hear all the time.
It's a very common idiom, yes. It means finding positivity in a negative situation or focusing on the good aspects. But here...
Here it feels really ironic.
Exactly. It's used with a heavy dose of irony. It highlights her opportunistic nature, moving from a brief, perfunctory moment of apparent grief to a very quick calculation of how this tragedy might serve her own interests. It's a truly telling cultural detail about how people interact in tight-knit communities, the sometimes fine line between genuine neighborly concern and outright nosiness, especially in the immediate, raw aftermath of a tragedy.
Yeah.
It makes us ask how much of what we see is performance.
That dual nature, the blend of social expectation and personal opportunism, is a fantastic example of the complexities we're diving into. So, Mary Alice was laid to rest on a Monday, and after the funeral, the narrator tells us all the residents of Wisteria Lane came to pay their respects. It's a very common formal phrase, isn't it? Paid their respects.
Very common, yes. It's what you do. You attend a funeral or memorial service to show honor to the deceased and offer support to the grieving family. It's a social ritual, a sign of community.
And, as the narrator says, as people do in these situations, they brought food. This tradition of bringing food to a grieving family is... well, it's deeply ingrained, practically and symbolically, in many cultures.
Absolutely. It signifies care, support, community solidarity during a time of sorrow. It provides sustenance when a grieving family might be unable or just unwilling to cook for themselves.
But as we're about to discover, the food itself and the circumstances surrounding its arrival become a surprisingly insightful lens through which to examine the lives of the people bringing it.
Yes, the food isn't just about nourishment here. It becomes a powerful symbolic language, a lens through which we glimpse the very real lives behind those suburban facades. Each dish, or the telling absence of a homemade one, reveals a deeper story, a personal struggle, or a carefully maintained image. It's a remarkably subtle yet effective way for the narrative to expose social dynamics and individual burdens, inviting us, to look beyond the surface of what people present to the world.
Let's start with Lynette Scavo, who brought fried chicken. Now, the source tells us Lynette had a great family recipe, something she probably treasured. But her life had become so truly hectic, just overflowing with activity and a constant rush, that she was forced to get her chicken from a fast food restaurant.
Hectic. That's a great vocabulary word.
It really is. It means very busy and full of activity, often implying a chaotic or rushed feeling, a constant state of being overwhelmed.
Which perfectly encapsulates Lynette's life as an overwhelmed stay-at-home mom. Her husband, Tom, had encouraged her to quit her high-powered advertising job, telling her, kids do better with stay-at-home moms.
Oof. That speaks to a deeply prevalent societal idea, doesn't it? That whole ongoing debate around work-life balance.
Right, and the often immense pressure on mothers to be constantly available, perfectly managing both children and home, often at the expense of their own well-being or career progression.
That career progression, usually described as moving up the corporate ladder, a very common metaphor for career advancement, climbing to higher positions.
And the irony of Lynette, who has a great family recipe, being too overwhelmed to use it, was a stark commentary on her reality. She didn't even have time to appreciate that irony, which really underscores just how hectic her life was.
And we see her struggling intensely with her unruly children, threatening to call Santa.
Yes, threatening to call Santa and tell them they want socks for Christmas if they don't behave. This is such a quintessentially American cultural detail.
It really is.
In many Western cultures, especially around Christmas, Santa Claus is not just a figure of generosity, but also often used by parents as a disciplinary tool, a kind of mythical enforcer of good behavior. The idea of Santa having a cell phone number is a humorous exaggeration, of course.
Of course.
But the threat of getting socks for Christmas instead of toys is a widely understood cultural incentive or punishment for children, playing directly on their desires for gifts during the holiday season. It highlights the lengths parents go to maintain control, and the societal expectation that mothers in particular should have perfectly behaved children.
Or risk feeling, what's the word used? Humiliated.
Exactly, humiliated. A strong and deeply uncomfortable feeling of disgrace or mortification, especially in front of their neighbors. It shows the pressure to project an image of perfect parenting.
Oh, the humiliation is absolutely palpable, and it's a feeling many parents can surely relate to. Next up, we have Gabrielle Solis, who lives down the block. She brought a spicy paella, which she liked piping hot.
Piping hot, another great descriptive phrase.
Isn't it? Means extremely hot, typically used for food or drink that has just come off the stove or out of the oven, steaming and ready to be served. But while her paella was piping hot, her relationship with her husband Carlos was considerably cooler.
Considerably cooler, so significantly less warm. Used figuratively here, obviously, to describe a decline in emotional warmth, passion, intimacy in their marriage.
That contrast is striking, isn't it? The vibrant, immediate heat of the paella versus the growing chill in her personal life.
It's a brilliant narrative device to use food as a metaphor for a relationship. Gabrielle, a former New York model, clearly developed a taste not just for rich food, but also for rich men. Her relationship with Carlos is quickly revealed to be highly transactional, driven by wealth and status.
We see her refusal to work in a mention of her necklace's price to a friend. What does work it in mean exactly?
To work it in is a very useful informal phrase. It means to subtly or smoothly introduce a topic into a conversation without making it obvious or forced, like trying to slip it in naturally.
Okay. But then later, she freely admits to sleeping with half the Yankee outfield at another party because, as she puts it, it came up in the context of the conversation.
And that phrase, it came up in the context of the conversation, is incredibly useful too. It's a way to explain how a topic arose naturally or unexpectedly in a discussion. It suggests it wasn't deliberately introduced by her, but rather emerged organically from whatever they were talking about.
So she's selective about what she reveals and how.
Exactly. The juxtaposition of these two situations perfectly highlights Gabrielle's selective approach. She'll share scandalous details if they make her appear adventurous or confident, but she's wary of appearing crass or boastful about material possessions, unless it can be done with extreme subtlety. It's a keen observation of the pursuit of wealth and status, and how material possessions so often fail to deliver genuine happiness, creating a public display of status that masks a very different and often empty private reality.
It certainly does, laying bare a fascinating kind of social manipulation. Then there's Brie Van de Kamp, Mary Alice's next-door neighbor. She brought baskets of muffins she baked from scratch. Now, from scratch, that's a common phrase.
Very common and important. It means making something completely from basic raw ingredients, not using a pre-made mix or prepared components. It applies skill, effort, time.
And a high level of domesticity. Brie was known for her cooking, sewing, gardening, and upholstery. She truly had many talents, a general phrase for possessing diverse skills. Everyone on Wisteria Lane thought of Brie as the perfect wife and mother, reinforcing that idealized image of the perfect homemaker in suburban America, a role that, as we've seen, often comes with immense stifling pressure.
This meticulous performance of domesticity is central to Brie's character, and it's what she uses to project that perfect image. She even meticulously asks for the baskets back after the funeral, a small detail, but wow, it speaks volumes about her controlled nature and her need for everything to be in its proper place.
Down to the last muffin basket.
Right. What's crucial here, though, is the narrator's immediate caveat. Everyone saw her as perfect, that is, except her own family.
Ah, there it is.
That immediately signals a profound hidden dysfunction beneath that gleaming surface. The societal expectation for a perfect homemaker often leads to hidden stress, deep resentment, and a stark contrast between outward appearance and inner reality, particularly within the family unit, who experiences that pressure directly. It suggests that while Brie might be perfect for public consumption, her relentless pursuit of this ideal is crushing her family behind closed doors.
And finally, Susan Mayer, who lives across the street, brought macaroni and cheese. Her ex-husband, Carl, always teased her about her macaroni.
Teased. So, made fun of her, often playfully perhaps, but maybe with an edge.
Yeah, it can be playful, but it can also be a way to express underlying criticism or even affection, oddly enough. Susan's macaroni became, in a way, a barometer for her marriage to Carl. It was too salty when they first moved in, too watery when she found lipstick on Carl's shirt.
Ooh, lipstick on Carl's shirt. That's a classic.
Isn't it? A universally recognized cultural symbol of infidelity. Its immediate, almost cinematic shorthand. Needs no explanation.
None at all. It's a potent symbol of betrayal and a shortcut to understanding the depth of her marital pain.
And the macaroni was burned when he ultimately left her for his secretary.
Ouch. So Susan's story beautifully illustrates the emotional toll of divorce and infidelity, and the challenges that arise when suddenly navigating single motherhood and the prospect of dating again. Her daughter, Julie, offers a surprisingly insightful comment, saying that sometimes people pretend to be one way when they're totally different inside.
That is incredibly profound, especially from a child.
Isn't it? It cuts right to the heart of the show's overarching theme of hidden lives and secrets, of appearances versus reality. It highlights the unexpected wisdom that children can possess when observing the complex, often contradictory behaviors of adults, picking up on nuances that adults might miss or deliberately ignore. Julie's observation serves as a vital foreshadowing for the secrets yet to be uncovered.
That's where it gets really interesting, because these women then gather, processing Mary Alice's death, but also grappling with their own struggles. They discuss Carl's infidelity and his classic philanderer's handbook excuse. It doesn't mean anything. It was just sex.
The Philanderer's Handbook, a great metaphorical phrase. It suggests a kind of guide or a set of common predictable excuses used by a man who engages in many casual sexual relationships.
Like there's a script they all follow.
Exactly. A predictable pattern of behavior to justify his actions and minimize their impact. Carl then drops a pseudo-philosophical claim about most men live lives of quiet desperation.
Ah, the Thoreau reference.
Right, it's a direct literary reference to Henry David Thoreau, implying unfulfilled or unhappy lives that are endured silently, without complaint or outward display of emotion. Here it's used in a more everyday, almost self-pitying context, but it certainly resonates with the underlying themes of hidden struggles that permeate the show.
But Susan's retort is brilliant.
It really is, her sharp comeback. What do most women lead? Lives of noisy fulfillment.
Huh. It's so clever.
It's a fantastic antithesis, coined brilliantly by Susan to challenge Carl's self-pitying philosophy. It's humorous yet incredibly pointed commentary on gendered expectations and frustrations in relationships. While men might retreat into their perceived quiet desperation, women are often expected to manage family and home, sometimes in a very vocal and demanding way, creating a noisy reality of juggling countless responsibilities.
It's also where Bree makes her NRA comment about her husband, Rex.
Yes, a humorous reference to the National Rifle Association, implying she'd consider armed self-defense against her husband if he were to cheat. Highlights the dark humor they use to cope with difficult truths.
And Lynette's exhaustion from her multiple pregnancies comes up too.
Highlighting the sheer physical and mental burden of motherhood that often goes unseen. They all acknowledge their moments of desperation.
Which refers to
Points in time when one feels utterly hopeless or overwhelmed, and the need to face them head on, to confront a difficult situation directly and courageously rather than avoiding it. This shared vulnerability and recognition of their hidden struggles reinforces the crucial importance of female friendship and support networks in times of profound crisis.
It's those shared moments of desperation and the courage to articulate them that truly bond them. As the community reels, Paul Young, Mary Alice's husband, asks the women to help pack Mary Alice's things, saying he's out of his mind with grief.
A poignant phrase. Completely overwhelmed by sadness, almost to the point of irrationality or losing control.
The women initially cannot fathom what problems Mary Alice could have had, given her seemingly perfect life. Gabrielle exclaims she lives 50 feet away, for God's sakes.
Which highlights a very common but often flawed human assumption, doesn't it? That outward appearance directly reflects internal state.
And that you know your neighbors just because they live close by.
Exactly. The human tendency to believe they know their neighbors fully, to assume familiarity based on proximity, even when profound secrets lurk just beneath the surface, hidden in plain sight.
That assumption is precisely what the show challenges. And Gabby's humorous, albeit dark, comment about Susan's cooking, hey, do you have a death wish?
Yeah, that's a moment of levity. But it also carries a subtle, morbid undertone, foreshadowing something deeper.
How so? What's a death wish usually mean?
Well, a death wish typically means an unconscious desire for one's own death, or maybe just a reckless disregard for one's own safety. Here, it's used humorously about Susan's bad cooking, exaggerating its potential harm.
Okay, makes sense.
But in the immediate context of Mary Alice's suicide, it adds a layer of dark irony, subtly connecting everyday frustrations and seemingly minor imperfections to the ultimate despair that Mary Alice succumbed to. It's a clever bit of foreshadowing that might pass unnoticed on a first listen, but truly resonates on reflection.
Now, as life on Wisteria Lane begins to shift and the dust from Mary Alice's death settles, we see new faces and new dynamics beginning to emerge. The introduction of Mike Delfino, a plumber who moves into the Sims house. Susan's daughter, Julie, immediately becomes a mini investigator.
A kind of teenage spy.
Exactly. Proactively trying to get information on him, she comes back with a full dossier. His wife died a year ago. In LA, there were too many memories. He's renting for tax purposes, but hopes to buy soon.
Wow, she's efficient.
Right. Julie then, with surprising maturity and directness, encourages her mom, Susan, to date, leading to Susan questioning if she's ready to date yet or had sex since the divorce. She learns from Julie that her ex-husband, Carl, doubted she dated anyone, which clearly provides a fresh motivation.
Ah, a little bit of spite motivation, perhaps.
You know me. Mike is quickly labeled an eligible bachelor. That's a useful term.
Very useful. An unmarried man considered a desirable potential partner, often due to factors like good looks, wealth, or agreeable personality. Basically, a good catch.
A good catch. And this whole sequence perfectly illustrates what we call the suburban grapevine.
Oh, yes. How information, especially good news, like the arrival of an eligible bachelor, travels incredibly fast in a tight-knit community.
It also humorously highlights the often surprising and sometimes even pushy role of children in their parents' dating lives, acting as both informants and matchmakers.
Julie's proactive research and encouragement are a testament to the dynamic shift within the family post-divorce, where traditional roles might be blurred and children become unexpected sources of wisdom or impetus for change.
But the race for Mike truly begins with the dramatic entry of Edie Britt, who is introduced to us as the most predatory divorcee in a 5-block radius.
Predatory, that's a strong word.
It is. Here, it means exploiting or harming others for personal gain, and in this context, it implies an aggressive, highly competitive pursuit of romantic conquests.
Her conquests were numerous, varied, and legendary. Conquests here used humorously for romantic partners, people who have been defeated or won over by her charm, suggests a strategic approach to dating.
She immediately makes her intentions known, bringing sausage puttanesca,
which itself has a suggestive name, doesn't it? Puttanesca in Italian loosely translates to in the style of a prostitute, implying something spicy, bold, maybe easy.
Interesting cultural note there, and she makes a very suggestive comment about Mike looking at her pipes. Susan, in her typical fashion, immediately labels her a slut.
A derogatory term for a woman who has many sexual partners, often used judgmentally within a community.
This portrayal is incredibly rich in cultural context, especially concerning gender dynamics in dating, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It immediately sets up the competitive nature of dating in a small community, where eligible men might seem scarce and the competition can be fierce. The use of derogatory labels, especially among women in romantic rivalries, is unfortunately a common, albeit regrettable, phenomenon, and highlights the double standards often applied to men and women regarding sexual activity.
Right. His conquests are legendary. Hers make her a slut.
Precisely. Edie's directness and suggestive language are in stark contrast to Susan's more hesitant, almost clumsy approach, immediately setting the stage for their entertaining, yet often vicious, rivalry, where the ultimate prize is Mike's attention.
Here's where things truly begin to unravel for our core characters, with their carefully constructed facades starting to crack under the pressure of their hidden lives. Gabrielle continues her passionate, illicit affair with her young gardener, John. Their relationship, while intense, is sharply contrasted with her transactional marriage to Carlos. Carlos expects her to accompany him to a business dinner where his associate, Tanaka, tries to grab my ass. Carlos, unbelievably, justifies this outrageous behavior by saying he made over $200,000 doing business with him last year, bluntly telling her, if he wants to grab your ass, let him.
Wow. Just, wow.
Their supposed compromise is that she'll keep her back pressed against the wall, which is a deeply twisted form of compromise, revealing the shocking objectification of women in business settings and how money can profoundly complicate intimacy and power dynamics within relationships.
It's a chilling illustration of how much value Carlos places on financial gain over his wife's dignity. It truly lays bare the deeply transactional nature of some marriages, where a spouse can be treated as a commodity an extension of a business deal. The power dynamic here is entirely skewed by Carlos's financial dominance, and his callous disregard for Gabrielle's feelings is truly unsettling.
Then, in an act of profound defiance and rebellion, Gabrielle tempts John to hook up.
Okay, very common informal term for engaging in sexual activity.
Right. She tempts him to hook up on the table that Carlos imported for an exorbitant $23,000.
That act is not just about physical intimacy. It's a direct, deeply symbolic act of rebellion against Carlos's control and his demeaning treatment of her. It's a desperate way for Gabrielle to exert agency and find a perverse sense of control within her suffocating marriage.
Using his expensive table against him.
Exactly. By repurposing a symbol of Carlos's wealth into a tool for her own pleasure and rebellion, she's striking back at the very foundation of his power over her.
Meanwhile, Bree's meticulously crafted perfection faces its own breaking point, revealing the immense strain it puts on her family. We see her preparing dinner with her usual precision, basil puree soup and ossobuco, which took her 3 hours to perfect.
Very fancy.
Her children, however, visibly rebel against this culinary artistry, desiring normal soup like French onion or navy bean.
Which perfectly highlights the profound conflict between Bree's rigid ideal of domesticity and her family's simple, genuine desire for authenticity and simplicity, even in their meals.
Her son, Andrew, even asks if she's doing drugs because she's been as fresh as paint for 6 months, suspecting something related to her constant bathroom visits. As fresh as paint. What does that mean exactly?
As fresh as paint. It's an idiom. It can mean someone looks unusually well or appears suspiciously new or different. It often suggests an unnatural, too perfect demeanor or an abrupt, unexplained change in behavior. Like she's too perfect, suspiciously so.
Got it. That makes sense in this context.
And that phrase perfectly captures the unnerving artificiality of Bree's perfection. And Rex, Bree's husband, then delivers a devastating ultimatum, a moment where his own desperation spills over. I want a divorce. He declares, with palpable frustration, that he can't live in this detergent commercial anymore, expressing a clear preference for simple pork and beans over her elaborate cuisine.
The detergent commercial metaphor, that's powerful.
Isn't it? A remarkably visual metaphor for a life that appears artificially perfect, like an idealized, often unrealistic TV advertisement. It implies a profound lack of realness or spontaneity, a life devoid of genuine messiness and emotion.
And cuisine here emphasizing the fancy cooking he rejects.
Precisely. Contrasting sharply with his desire for simple, unpretentious food. Rex's breaking point reveals the immense pressure cooker of suburban perfection, where the relentless performance of traditional gender roles stifles intimacy and ultimately leads to marital breakdown. He refers to Bree as the head of this household, a traditional phrase for the primary decision-maker in a family, used ironically by him to highlight her controlling nature.
But really about her oppressive control over every minute detail.
Yes. Her domestic life. It's almost a Stepford reference, isn't it? From the movie The Stepford Wives, implying an unnervingly perfect, almost robotic female persona that frightens him more than it comforts him.
The facades are clearly crumbling all over Wisteria Lane, exposing the raw nerves underneath. 3 days after Mary Alice's funeral, Lynette, ever the pragmatist, replaces her grief with indignation.
Indignation, another strong emotion word. Anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment.
She channels this into threatening her husband, Tom, with bringing the kids to his business trip if he doesn't call her back immediately. She's then confronted by an old colleague, Natalie Klein, who implies Lynette would be running the place by now if she hadn't quit her career to become a stay-at-home mom.
Ouch. That's gotta sting.
What's truly heartbreaking is Lynette's internal struggle with the question, don't you just love being a mom? The narrator tells us she dreaded this question. To dread something
means to regard it with great fear or apprehension, perfectly capturing her internal conflict. She lies that it's the best job I've ever had, because, as the narrator tells us, only one answer was acceptable.
That is such a crucial, heartbreaking cultural commentary.
It really is. It precisely highlights the conflicting societal expectations for women, the pressure to pursue high-powered careers or to be completely devoted mothers. And what Lynette reveals is that there's often only one acceptable answer in public discourse, creating immense pressure to portray motherhood as universally joyful, even when it's utterly exhausting, overwhelming, and isolating.
Which leads to silence around the real challenges.
Exactly. Lynette's lie about it being the best job she's ever had is a painful example of navigating that pressure for an acceptable answer, revealing the profound internal conflict many women face between their personal desires, their identities beyond motherhood, and the deeply ingrained societal ideals of what a good mother should be. This pressure can contribute significantly to those hidden moments of desperation.
And speaking of desperation, the secrets continue to fester. Gabrielle, in a surprisingly introspective moment, speaks to Mary Alice's spirit, wondering why she wasn't happy despite having everything I've ever wanted, concluding with the painful realization that she wanted all the wrong things.
That's a huge moment of self-awareness for Gabrielle. Quite profound, actually.
It is. She then turns her gaze inward, wondering why she and John are having an affair, directly linking her own current state of despair to Mary Alice's ultimate act, saying, I don't want to wake up one morning with the sudden urge to blow my brains out.
Blow my brains out. A very blunt, dramatic, emotionally charged phrase, meaning to commit suicide by shooting oneself in the head. Used here by Gabrielle, it expresses not just extreme unhappiness and despair, but a profound fear of reaching such a desperate, irreversible point.
It really underscores the idea that material wealth, no matter how vast, does not guarantee internal happiness or fulfillment.
Absolutely. This moment powerfully connects the pursuit of material wealth to emotional emptiness, suggesting that external achievements and possessions often don't deliver genuine internal happiness. Gabrielle's fear of having a death wish like Mary Alice highlights a disturbing cycle of unhappiness and unhealthy coping mechanisms that can proliferate when true feelings are suppressed, or when individuals find themselves trapped in lives that don't truly fulfill them. It serves as a stark warning, showing how easily one can slip into a similar abyss of despair if they don't confront their own unhappiness head-on.
Now, back to the chaotic dating games of Wisteria Lane. Susan, ever the hopeful romantic and strongly encouraged by Julie, tries to ask Mike out, only to be immediately interrupted by Edie, who arrives not empty-handed, but with ambrosia.
Ambrosia. A dessert often made with fruit and marshmallows. Here it's a sweet, somewhat old-fashioned dish that serves as a symbol of Edie's domestic efforts, but more importantly, her intensely competitive effort to impress Mike and stake her claim.
Susan, in a moment of sheer panic and desperation to get Mike alone, invents a clog in the pipe to get him to her house. What follows is a frantic, hilarious attempt by her and Julie to create a believable clog using everything from popsicle sticks and peanut butter to cooking oil, olives.
Oh my goodness, that's dedication.
Mike, ever the professional plumber, easily finds the popsicle sticks, attributing it casually to kids.
Which is a truly humorous look at the absurd lengths people will go to in romantic pursuit, especially when fueled by rivalry. It also cleverly showcases the innocent facade of children's antics being used to cover up adult mischief and schemes.
Right, blame the kids.
Mike's easy dismissal of the clog as kids' stuff is a subtle nod to the stereotypical bachelor activities versus the idea of settling down into a family life, where such domestic chaos is a given. The immediate and fierce rivalry between Susan and Edie is perfectly established here, becoming a recurring comedic and dramatic element throughout the narrative.
As the story builds towards its climax, the pressure points for each character reach new heights. Rex's ultimatum to Bree escalates dramatically. He tells her he wants a divorce at a casual restaurant, criticizing her cuisine, that elaborate, fancy cooking, and reiterating his inability to live in a detergent commercial.
And Bree, still rigid.
Ever rigid, refuses to discuss such a personal matter in a place with restrooms labeled chicks and dudes, showing her unwavering adherence to decorum even in the face of marital collapse. It's astonishing emotional repression.
Absolutely.
He then brings up a truly insidious detail. Her knowing he's deathly allergic to onions, yet she deliberately put them in his salad, a deliberate passive-aggressive act to provoke him. Deathly allergic.
Meaning severely allergic, with potentially life-threatening consequences. That really amplifies the malice of her act. This is such a painful and deeply revealing scene.
It really is.
It showcases the brutal contrast between public appearance and private emotional turmoil within a marriage. Bree's inability to admit defeat or vulnerability is heartbreaking. She sobs quietly in the restroom, hiding her pain, but then emerges perfect again,
Keeping up appearances till the bitter end.
demonstrating her deep-seated need to maintain appearances regardless of her internal turmoil. It highlights the passive-aggressive nature of some marital conflicts, where seemingly small actions carry immense emotional weight and are used as weapons. The ranch dressing Rex mentions looks suspect,
What does suspect imply there?
inspiring mistrust, of questionable character or nature, or just something that seems off, doesn't feel right. Another subtle dig at the artificiality and hidden dangers around Bree's perfectly curated life. It's a relationship suffocated by an unrelenting pursuit of an ideal.
And as these personal dramas unfold, Mary Alice's son, Zachary, reveals a chilling detail that pulls us back to the central mystery. The mysterious sound that awakened him on that fateful day, the strange popping sound, was something he'd heard only once before, many years ago when he was quite young. Crucially, he recognized it instantly.
Chilly.
It was, he tells us, the sound of a family secret.
Wow. That immediately speaks to the enduring nature of childhood memories and trauma, and the insidious way family secrets can impact generations, silently shaping lives and leaving scars long after the initial event. It creates a lingering sense of foreboding, a chill that runs through the otherwise vibrant suburban setting. It emphasizes that Mary Alice's death is not an isolated incident, but a profound consequence of something deeply buried within her family's past, something that has haunted Zachary for years.
Yeah.
The casual, almost mundane mention of the sound of a family secret implies a shocking, profound revelation to come, hinting at a hidden darkness beneath that Wisteria Lane facade that is now beginning to surface. It underscores how deeply intertwined the past can be with the present.
7 days after the funeral, life on Wisteria Lane seemingly returns to normal, which for Lynette, ironically, is unfortunate. Her husband, Tom, returns home briefly, looking utterly frazzled.
Exhausted and anxious, often to the point of being visibly disheveled. A great word.
Lynette herself is exhausted and covered in peaches from dealing with the kids, yet Tom, despite her obvious state, wants sex. She suggests a condom due to swelling from being off the pill, but Tom dismisses her concerns with a casual, "Let's risk it."
Let's risk it. That common informal phrase meaning to proceed despite potential negative consequences, often used with a sense of recklessness.
And Lynette, overwhelmed and depleted, feels utterly unable to say no.
This moment powerfully highlights the ongoing imbalance of desire and power in some marriages, particularly after children. Lynette's profound exhaustion and the immediate demand for intimacy underscore the continuous physical and emotional toll of her hectic life, and the burden that mothers often carry in maintaining both the household and the emotional and physical needs of their partners. It further reveals the hidden struggles beneath the veneer of suburban normalcy.
And the confrontations continue for Bree. Rex, now openly frustrated, continues to confront her about her perfect facade, his irritation growing with every meticulous detail. He's tired of her bizarre hair, her habit of making the bed before he even uses the bathroom, and her very essence as a plastic suburban housewife with her pearls and spatula, who says things like, "We owe the Hendersons a dinner," prioritizing social obligations over genuine connection.
He desperately misses the woman who used to burn the toast and drink milk out of the carton, and most importantly, laugh.
That longing for authenticity.
Exactly. This is a truly powerful articulation of the burden of perfectionism and its devastating impact on intimacy and spontaneity within a relationship. Rex's longing for the old Bree, the flawed, spontaneous, and joyful woman, highlights how the relentless pursuit of an ideal, that perfect wife and mother stereotype, can utterly destroy genuine connection. The plastic suburban housewife stereotype, with her pearls and spatula, perfectly encapsulates the artificiality and emotional rigidity that Rex finds so suffocating. He's yearning for a real woman, not a flawless mannequin.
Meanwhile, Gabrielle's marital compromise with Carlos, initially disturbing, descends into something even more transactional and morally ambiguous. Carlos returns and observes Gabrielle's affair with John, but surprisingly, he doesn't seem to care as long as his business associate, Tanaka, is kept happy.
Unbelievable. He actually sees them.
Seems like it. Gabrielle, now fully embracing her manipulative role, ensures Tanaka is kept happy by specifically asking for him to have a drink in his hand all night long. A clear signal of her continued willingness to use her looks and influence to benefit Carlos's business, regardless of the personal cost.
This further solidifies the truly transactional nature of their relationship and exposes the disturbing entitlement that often comes with wealth and power, where human connection and personal dignity become secondary to business deals and financial gain. Carlos effectively endorses the affair, viewing it not as a betrayal of intimacy, but as a tool to serve his financial interests. This reveals a profound lack of emotional connection within their marriage and a truly disturbing moral compass.
Then, in a truly dramatic turn, Susan's romantic jealousy takes center stage, leading to a fiery climax. Mrs. Huber, still suffering from Susan's bad macaroni and cheese and always eager for gossip, informs Susan that Edie is having a gentleman friend over for dinner and plans to entertain into the wee hours.
Into the wee hours. A wonderfully descriptive phrase, meaning very late at night until early morning, suggests a long, intimate evening.
Susan, consumed by jealousy and unable to contain herself, goes to Edie's house and, in a fit of rage or recklessness, accidentally sets it on fire while looking in. Edie, in a moment of pure chaos, runs out with nothing on.
Oh my God. Accidental arson fueled by jealousy.
Susan initially believes Mike was the man with Edie, leading her to mourn her loss, feeling that the possibility she had clung to.
Clung to, like holding on tightly to something, physically or figuratively, like hope.
Exactly. That possibility she had clung to was now gone forever.
But then, in a classic dramatic reversal, a moment of almost mythical resurgence, Mike suddenly appears saying he just got back from the movies, utterly shattering Susan's despair.
This unexpected reappearance instantly makes Susan happy and full of possibilities. His arrival is vividly described like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
The mythical bird that regenerates from fire. Used metaphorically here to describe Mike's surprising return and Susan's renewed hope, emerging from the literal ashes of Edie's house.
This incident perfectly captures the extremes of romantic jealousy, the idea of accidents with conveniently dramatic outcomes, and the profound persistence of hope against all odds.
And importantly, the narrative adds a crucial layer, noting that there are a few unexpected surprises and a mysterious phone call. I'm definitely getting closer.
Ah, that ties back to the main mystery.
Exactly. This final line hints at an external, darker plot unfolding separate from the domestic dramas, tying back directly to the initial perplexing mystery of Mary Alice's suicide, suggesting that her death is connected to something much larger and more sinister.
And so the friends gather once more, this time to pack Mary Alice's belongings, a poignant act of remembrance and closure. Gabrielle, ever the provocateur and always one to find an angle, discovers a letter addressed to Mary Alice, a crucial piece of the puzzle that arrived the day she died. She flippantly declares, "Let's get this show on the road."
An informal but widely understood expression meaning to start something, often with enthusiasm or sense of urgency, like, let's get on with it.
Then, with the dramatic flourish, she declares, "We found the skeleton in her closet."
The skeleton in her closet. A classic metaphorical phrase for a secret, typically embarrassing or scandalous, that someone wishes to keep hidden from public view. Gabrielle uses it here with a hint of dark delight, clearly thrilled by the discovery.
The irony in that moment is truly profound and tragic. As Gabrielle casually uncovers this secret, Mary Alice's narration expresses the poignant paradox of something she tried so desperately to keep secret being treated so casually in death.
That's powerful.
The women immediately grasp the significance, wondering aloud, is this why she? The episode ends with Mary Alice's own poignant, haunting voice asking, "Oh, Mary Alice, what did you do?"
That final question encapsulates the central mystery of her suicide and the enduring human tendency to search for reasons, for explanations behind tragedy, especially when it involves hidden secrets in seemingly perfect lives. It leaves us with a lingering sense of vulnerability about private lives exposed after death and the unresolved, deeply unsettling nature of what Mary Alice was trying so desperately to protect.
So as we wrap up this truly deep dive into Wisteria Lane, what we've really seen is that beneath the gleaming perfection of suburban life, there were hectic realities, cooler relationships, detergent commercial facades, and profoundly desperate moments. Each seemingly ordinary life, each character we've explored, held layers of complexity and hidden struggles that were often directly at odds with the carefully constructed appearances.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this narrative powerfully illustrates the immense, often crushing pressure to maintain appearances, the hidden costs of societal expectations that demand a certain kind of perfection, and the explosive consequences when those facades inevitably crack. This raises a truly important question for all of us, something to consider long after this deep dive. How much of what we see in others, and indeed what we choose to show of ourselves, is truly real?
Yeah.
By exploring these vivid portrayals, we've not only gained insight into the complex human condition, but also sharpened our understanding of descriptive English vocabulary, common phrases, and the vital cultural context that gives them such potent meaning and impact in everyday conversation. It's been a rich source for language learners, I think.
That's certainly something to chew on. Mary Alice's narration asks, "What did you do?" But perhaps the deeper question for us, after observing her neighbors and their own struggles, is this. What do we do, collectively and individually, to create the conditions where such profound secrets and desperations can flourish, unseen in plain sight? And what does that reveal about our own communities and the unspoken pressures we might all be under?